Shimasu! Welcome back to the Goju Karate Center. Today we are working on common karate mistakes that beginners make. For those of you who are new here, my name's Zoe. I'm a full-time karate instructor. I've been teaching karate full-time for 8 years, doing Goju for 18 years. And my focus in my teaching is usually working with beginners, ranging from kids right through to adults. So I see a lot of the same mistakes being repeated over and over again. And these are things that can be fixed with conscientious practice. Those of you who are not new here will know that a common refrain on our channel is, do what your sensei says. So if you are not a student in my dojo, I would ask that you defer to your sensei's instructions, but I hope what we have here will be helpful to you. So let's begin. Common blocking errors. So let's go through them quickly. The face block, most common error we see with a face block is this hand is often in the wrong position. It does not rest on the head because you're going to knock yourself out. It doesn't go over the head because now you're exposed. It goes at about a fist's distance from the forehead. Tuck that elbow in a little bit. Imagine like you're trying to close your armpit down and make sure that this is in the right position. Make sure that you touch your elbow when you are a beginner to make sure you cross through the middle and you don't get a windscreen wiper effect. Always ensure the chamber hand is pulled back, not just for blocks but for punches as well. This may vary again from style to style. We sit on the short ribs, some styles are higher, some styles are lower. Again, speak to your sensei. With chest block, a common issue we will see is that the block is too far to the side. You don't have to defend your invisible friend. You just want to have that fist in line with that shoulder, at the same height as your shoulder, and just past. Arm is at a 90-degree angle. From here, not too far here, and not crunched up against your shoulder. So we want that nice 90-degree angle when doing a chest block. Speaking of which, Gedanbarai, popular block in Goju, making sure this hand is in chamber, this hand is straight down, covering the groin. Must make sure the face is protected as part of this block. I've done other videos on how to practice this block. Today we are focusing on the most common errors. So usually I see shortcuts being taken where only the stomach is protected and not the face, or this is too big or too small. There's a quote from the author of The Little Prince: "Perfection is not when you have nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away." And it's very much the same that your blocks, once you've pared them down to cover all the necessary area without any extra movement or waste, that's when the block is its best. Right, common punching errors. One of the most common errors I see is that the arm chicken wings out. So one of the ways you could correct this with your younger students, this is actually something used by teachers to help kids who are struggling with scissors, is I want them to imagine, and something you can practice in the dojo, that the hand stays as close as possible to the paper until it can't any more. Luckily, I have a thick gi that holds the paper in place, but the principle stands. Let's practice on this side, keeping that elbow closed, like keeping that armpit nice and tight, and only at the end do you release. At no point, the minute that elbow comes out, the paper falls down. So I want you to focus on keeping that elbow in and close and rotating. Why no chicken wing? Because this is a loss of power and you're taking the longest way around. The shortest distance is a straight line, so we like to punch in a straight line. Do we have hooks in our kata? Not really, but you'll often see civilians love to use hooks because it's used on TV and movies and it's the most common denominator. Forming a correct fist is our next issue. So commonly seen error is punching with the corner knuckles. This is how you end up with what's called a boxer's fracture, which I've spoken about I don't know how many times. Make sure that there's a straight line down your knuckles to your forearm. One of the quickest ways I found to correct this, I wish I could remember who taught me, is you just tuck in that pinky. When you pull the pinky in, automatically that fist straightens out. If you relax the pinky, it goes skew, so we want that pinky to be pulled in. Next, straight wrist, straight fist. So not this, not that, not that, dead straight. This is how we make sure that the force does not get dispersed in all these little metacarpals. nice straight wrist. And the best way to fix this is just to have a tight fist. The minute your fist is loose, everything goes skew. Now, unfortunately, I have hypermobility, so my elbow has a tendency to pop out. So making sure that that elbow does not face the roof, but is actually bent in. Blocks, punches, and now let's move on to kicks. Kicks are actually not as intuitive as people think. If you go watch footage of people in street fights, you'll often notice that most people don't kick, or if they do, they just do like a little shin kick. Most people genuinely don't know how to kick. And when you're a natural born kicker, it might seem weird that no one else naturally knows how to kick. We often see that it takes longer to teach new students how to kick than how to block or punch. So let's start with the basics. If your kick is too low, you need to lift your knee higher. The knee, think of it this way, is the barrel of the gun. This dictates how far or how high your kick can be. Low knee, low kick. High knee, high kick. So often you'll see, especially with younger kids, there's not enough strength in the supporting leg or in the core to bring that knee up and hold it there. So often there's a base issue here of core stability and supporting leg strength. So we start with working on that. That's why knee strike is so important, because you start working on those principles of making the leg stronger and the core stronger before you have to balance long enough to kick. So making sure that knee is the height you need it to be to kick to the correct target, whether it be the groin, the stomach, the face if you want to show off the kneecaps, all valid targets. Next issue with kicks, and it's referring back to slightly earlier, is wobbliness. So often new people or students who are new to karate, you'll see they're wobbling all over the place when they're doing their karate. Let's start with how to control that. Breathe in, tighten your core. Keep that core tight as you lift. You'll see immediately there's a stabilizing influence. Then sink your foot down and bend your knee just a little bit. If you lock that knee, oh, there goes your balance. Soften the knee, not bend, but soften that knee. Lift those toes and kick. As your core gets stronger and your legs get stronger, the kicks will get easier. Okay, when kicking, there must be snap back. So let's go from the side. Make sure when you do your maigeri, as a straightforward example, in maigeri, your front kick, that you do not just drop the foot. You look like a pony. Nee. So from here, lift that knee, snap, kick, or kick, snap, bring that foot back and down. One more time, kick, foot back and down. The idea is to deliver the damage and then get out the way. If someone is fast enough, there is the chance that they can grab your foot. If they are that fast, all you do is you follow through with a stomp. But for now, we want to teach that very quick penetrative damage. So make sure, slow motion, up, out, heel back and down. Out, back, heel, down. Very common mistake. It's the one I probably write the most on grading reports, is that there's no snap back on the kicks. There's just dropping the feet. And snap back requires control. So as students develop their control, their snapbacks tend to improve. Next most common issue is lifting onto the toes when kicking. Partly this is the idea that gives the illusion of generating power because they're lifting their whole body. It causes instability. We don't really want to be on our toes when we kick. And it also happens because there's a lack of flexibility in the back of the leg. So as the one leg comes up, the other leg, the tendons are a bit short and it pulls that heel up. Very common mistake with kids. The heels come up and you see this. A bouncy kind of look. So let's root ourselves. Supporting leg, bend it slightly, put your weight on that leg and start low. A kick to the knee is very effective. As your legs get stronger, then you can start kicking higher. If you want to work on flexibility for the back of your legs, if you go back to our yoga video we did a couple of weeks ago, there's some exercises in there. But also just one of my favorites, straight leg, bend and touch the toes. Sort of, let me reveal my calves to YouTube. This leg is bent and reaching for the toes. You're going to feel that pull, that stretch all the way up the back of the leg. Blocks, kicks, and punches. Let's move on to stances. Now, Funakoshi did say that stances are for beginners and natural position is for the advanced. The reason you learn stances as a beginner is that it teaches you the muscle memory to have the legs in roughly the right place at the right time when you need to fight. Because each stance has its benefits, each stance has its weaknesses, and it also gives you strength in your legs, as well as flexibility and agility over time. So, I'm going to do the most basic stances. The scope of this video is not for your more complicated or more advanced stances. I'm just going to stick to the most basic 5. Starting with Sanshin, first stance we use in Geksara Edge. 1, 2, hip width apart. Step through. Your toe and heel are on the same line. So let me move on to one of these. There we go. Heel and toe on the same line. The general rule of thumb is you should be able to drop your knees to protect the groin. Thick thighs save lives. So from here, drop those knees forward. Your weight is not equally dispersed. Your weight is 60-40 on the front foot. Your weight falls directly in between your feet. And you should be comfortable in this stance. Nothing should hurt you. Knees are forward, heels out, toes in, but slightly. It's not this. When we say toes in, heels out, it's just enough so that there's a parallel line on the outside of your feet. Shift your weight onto the front foot, move forward. Shift your weight on the back foot, move back. This is one of the things that grinds my gears a little bit is 1 year it's this and 1 year it's that, and it keeps changing. But so sometimes you'll see you must step right through or slide back or slide forward, step forward. Either way, the point of Sanshin is to teach you a small defensive stance that protects the groin without you needing to drop your hands, and it's the stance we use the most often in our Goju. Next, Zenkutsudachi. For me, one of the most beautiful stances when done properly. It doesn't mean long stance, although we've kind of started calling it that because it looks long. It means forward stance. So all your weight is actually going forward. Your energy is going forward, not your ki, your energy. So from here, bending that front knee, straightening that back leg. There must be hip width apart. So the most common mistake we see with Zenkutsudachi is that it's too narrow, and then you get this kind of falling over effect. From here, bend that front knee, straighten that back leg, hips forward. So imagine your belly button has a laser beam in it. Point that laser beam forward. It should not be off to the side, it should be forward. Back straight. If you're feeling a little bit of strain here, that's good. The reason we like this stance is it allows you to shoot forward using the back leg because all of your weight and all of your intention is going forward or back. Allows you to close a lot of distance very quickly, once you know how. Shikudachi, every beginner's most hated stance because our cores are weak at the start, our legs are weak at the start, and the kata tends, well, the stance tends to look terrible. So from here, common error, either too big, too small. We want the stance to be heels in line with knees. That's enough calf and free feet pictures for you. Butt in, shoulders back, tummy tight, and we can work here. This is triangle stance. It does not exist in Goju. Nice and low. Obviously, if you, like me, have got hip issues, or you're old, or you've got injuries, it does not have to be this deep. That's for the young people and the talented people. Resting up here is okay. This is not. From 45-degree angle, toes and knees are pointing in the same line. So you don't want your knees going in a different direction to your toes. That's when injuries happen. So imagine there's a visible line tracking out of your knee. You should be able to cover your toes. If you can't cover your toes, your knee is in the wrong position. Neko Ashidachi, cat sweep stance or cat stance. Let's do it from the side. So from here, it's a little bit of a booty stance because your butt's out a little bit. Some people tuck their butts in. Well, I like to call it the booty stance because that's how the kids remember it. So from here, it's smaller than you think. Heel and roughly in line with toe and down. 90% of your weight is on the back foot. This is very light. This is ready to kick and shoot back. So to correct your cat stance width, 1, 2, forward, down. Try not to have this open, gentlemen, especially you might want to close here. So from here, knee in front of the body, weight on the back leg. It will burn Even if you've been doing this for a long time, this is still a lot of weight for one leg to take. So that's one of the reasons why it's often the most common error I see is that the stance is up here. This is a school style thing. Depending on where you're from, we like to have, say, like the height of an egg under the heel. Some styles up here, some it's barely touching. So please confer with your instructor how they would like you to do it. How do you improve your power? How do you generate power? So Westerners particularly have this idea that power comes from the shoulders, and if I were to hazard a theory, I would say that it comes from the culture of boxing. It comes from the idea that male upper body strength is located more up here. So that's my theories for why we've got this idea that you can only generate power in the shoulders. But that doesn't make sense because A, your center of gravity is not that high, and B, there's a gigantic complex of muscle here at the bottom. Our biggest muscles are literally in our butt and in our legs. Why not use all that power and this mechanism to generate the power you need rather than trying to generate power in the shoulder, which comparatively does not have as much muscle? How do you work on developing your own power? Now, not everyone has a punching bag at home or makiwara at home, but what you can do is you can work on your hip vibration. So Shakira says these hips don't lie, and neither do yours. So you start with just a little wiggle, just to get familiar with your hips, because most people are not used to this, unless you're a dancer, which I absolutely am not. So from here, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Imagine now that you've got, it's a weird analogy, I know, but this is how it was taught to me, and it's helped immensely. Imagine you have like two little fists sticking out of your hips. You're going to take those two hips, you're going to punch. And you're going to time those fists with these ones here. In the beginning, you may see a much bigger hip vibration. And it looks uncoordinated, like thunder behind lightning. What you really want is an almost imperceptible pa-pa kind of effect. So the hips go just before the fist lands so that the power can land with the fist. Start with your hips. Stand alone in your house, look at your mirror, and let your mirror help you. Try not to wiggle. You don't want to wiggle side to side. You want to move on an axis. So we had one in the dojo. I don't know where it's gone. Those of you who watch Karate Kid will know where this is going. It's one of those drums that you go like this, and it flies the little balls and they hit the drum. That's the same concept you're looking for. I'm sure I can find a GIF to put in here. So let's talk about intention and penetration. So the basic understanding that most beginners have is when they are punching, they're punching, let's say, for the sake of argument, they're trying to punch this printing. Fine, I'm hitting the printing, cool. But what I'm not actually aiming for is the printing. I'm aiming for through the printing and out the back. My intention is to hit the wall behind the printing. And watch how that changes the punch. Let's put it back into place. Before, when I was just aiming for the ink, like I could hit it, but not as hard as when I focus properly. So that's one thing I want you to think about. Don't aim for the belly button, aim for the spine. And you'll feel immediately a huge change in your intention in the punch. This is not like esoteric woo kind of thing, not at all. It's an understanding of how power works. I've seen more of a change in beginner's basics with that one visualization exercise than any amount of just hitting the bag. You can hit the bag 1,000,000 times and still do it wrong. You can use the worst punch 1,000,000 times and your punch is not going to improve. It's the quality of your training that matters. 10,000 hours of bag practice doesn't make you an expert in anything except bad practice. So, if you don't have a punching bag at home, find a loving family member and ask them to hold a pillow, or you can strap padding to a tree, if you're lucky to have a tree in your property or in a park somewhere. Maybe look at getting one of those portable makiwaras. I'll put some links in the description below to buy some, and that way you can also support our channel if you would like to. So, and our last point, for those of you who are not lucky enough to have a regular dojo where you train and consistent feedback from an instructor, and you train alone at home. And I know there are some of you out there who watch this channel And you have so kindly and graciously reached out to us and told us, you are my sensei, I train alone at home, thank you for your work. And we love you and we are so grateful for you because you are the bulwark of our success. One of the ways you can correct yourself at home is to actually film yourself, just like I'm filming myself now, with either a basic tripod or just propping it up against the wall. Film yourself and use an app like Coach's Eye, maybe, or even just your average camera app to slow down and see where you are making mistakes. If you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to see those mistakes because it's so obvious when you play it back to yourself. There have been a lot of times where I've done something and I haven't picked it up, but when I've filmed myself, I've looked at it being like, oh, how can you keep dragging your foot like that? Or some other silly mistake that I'm not conscious of making. We tend to develop blind spots around our own training and our own mistakes. And one of the ways I see my mistakes reflected back at me is when I see the same mistake in a grading and 30 kids are making the same mistake. That's not them, that's me. That's something they've picked up from me or from Shay. But since I do the bulk of the kids teaching at the moment, when I see those mistakes, I'm like, ugh, gross. Is that something I do? So please use the technology of your camera to coach yourself at home. And one day I'm working on some kind of way to be able to help people correct their kata on like a one-on-one basis. If you have any ideas, please drop them in the comments. So the most powerful tool you have at your disposal is the phone that you're watching this video on to help you record and check your own work. So I hope this video has been helpful. I hope it helps you correct basic mistakes. For those of you who still watch to the end, I know who you are. Thank you very much for always watching to the end. I'm sorry our content creation has been a little bit spotty, to say the least. It is chimney season. We now have 2 kids, and I'm running the fort. Shay's been injured. I've been injured in the shoulders. It's just been very hectic. We are trying to repurpose some of our old content. I don't know if you've seen some of it. We're trying to use some AI technology to try and improve our content production, and we will see where we go from there. But don't worry, summer's coming. Hopefully Brian will be back and we'll be able to film lots and lots of content for you. Hi! Thank you so much for your time and for being here with me today. Arigatou gozaimasu. Sayonara.